Welcome to the Sandwich Generation Podcast, a resource for adults balancing the dual responsibilities of raising children and caring for aging parents. Whether you're helping your parents downsize, explore real estate options, navigating caregiving, or looking for practical advice to help your family thrive, this is the place for you. Join us as we bring you expert insights, heartfelt stories, and actionable items to support you and your family within this unique generation.
Hello.
Good morning.
I'm
morning.
so glad you didn't change the beat of that intro.
No,
Because I know you were like getting sick of it. And since we changed our art, I was like, oh, I wonder if she's going to change the song.
No, left it.
Well, we have somebody here with us today who, I met you when I first started specializing in seniors real estate back in the Boomers and Beyond days.
Yes, that's been a hot minute, right?
I know. And Sara said it's been a while too.
Yeah.
Yep. We've all been in this world for quite a while, right?
What does it mean? Just that we're old or what?
Oh gosh.
We're seasoned, Lisa.
We're seasoned. Yep.
I like seasoned. That. I like that term.
Yeah. Well, Kim, do you want to start by introducing yourself? You can do a better introduction probably than we can, and tell us who you are, who you're with, what brought you to the company that you're with, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunities to be here today, ladies. I am Kim Williams, and I am the executive director for the Indiana Parkinson Foundation. And I've been with the organization for 12 years now. And the organization has been around since 2009 and has existed to come alongside those with Parkinson's and their families and provide vital programs and services that are needed when living with Parkinson's to improve their lives physically, mentally, and spiritually. We do that through our 3 pillars of exercise, education, and encouragement. And I was originally brought over to the organization 12 years ago when I was doing my own personal training business, and I naturally gravitated towards seniors. And so I think that was noticed, and someone just said, hey, would you like to come over and help with this Parkinson's program? And so I went over to observe and learn about what they were doing, and I fell in love. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the program. And that's where it all began. That's how I first started with the Indiana Parkinson Foundation. I was a group fitness instructor for their climb exercise program that I can go into a little bit later. But it was the perfect start for me because of not only where I was at in my own personal journey, but just because it gave me a great foundation for what I'm doing now today in my role as executive director.
That's awesome. 2009. So I did not know that the foundation was that young.
Yes. Yep.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. And is that just Indiana or is that nationwide?
We're the Indiana Parkinson Foundation. So there is a national foundation, but we're the Indiana Parkinson Foundation.
Okay. So they're kind of separate, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Absolutely.
Nice. I don't think I knew that. And then I know you mentioned the climb, which I have been, I don't want to say like supporter necessarily, but I just have encouraged a lot of people to
fan
that. Yeah, I'm a fan. There you go. I like it. Over the years, just in my background with, meeting people that newly diagnosed with Parkinson's. And so I'm like, have you heard of the climb? You should really try to find a class. So, and we just recently learned from another guest that Indiana is the national foundation of the climb program. Like this is where people come to get trained. Is that?
Yeah. So we do our trainings locally, but we also get requests to go elsewhere. So we have a training coming up in Elkhart in September. So it just depends on where the need is. So people can be trained in our program, and as they're trained in our program, to work with people living with Parkinson's, they can also get CE credits or continuing education because our program is evidence-based and accredited through ACE, NASM, and AFA. And so it really speaks volumes to just the great program that we offer. And it's now in 8 locations throughout the state, with several more in the pipeline coming down the road. So we're excited to offer this in more locations because, as you know, so many people are trying to navigate aging alone. And so we don't want that to be the case, right? We want to make sure that we provide them the resources that they need to live a better journey and make sure that they can continue to do what they love for as long as they want to.
Yeah, for sure. Wait, let's take a step back.
Yeah.
Help us understand Parkinson's disease, and then we can get into why the climb is an effective treatment. So, explain to us Parkinson's. Maybe what are some of the early signs, and how the progression works, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So Parkinson's is a chronic and progressive disease, and it is a neurodegenerative disease where there's an area of the brain called the substantia nigra where the dopaminergic neurons there's an interference and things aren't created the way they normally would. And so that person their system depletes of dopamine, right? And that is what brings on the onset of the Parkinson's symptoms, right? People with Parkinson's have non-motor and motor symptoms. The motor symptoms are what people think of when they think of Parkinson's, those physical symptoms that are obvious to the eye. So for instance, a tremor is what a lot of people think of when they think of Parkinson's, although only 30% of people with Parkinson's have a tremor. The tremor is one of the main recognized symptoms of Parkinson's. Along with that, they can have a shuffling gait, a lack of arm swing. They can have a masked face where, they really don't have any expression, which is the rigidity setting in the muscles of the face, right? And there can also be slower, smaller movements. All of those are some of those physical symptoms that people see and notice in a person, right? The non-motor are the symptoms that I call the hidden gems of Parkinson's, because I think that even though they're behind the scenes, they're almost more difficult sometimes to deal with than the physical symptoms. And they can include issues with mood, sleep, cognition, constipation, just a slew of underlying issues that can be very difficult to navigate. Apathy, depression, just a lot of difficult things. So those are some of the things that people experience when they have Parkinson's. Now, Parkinson's is also known as a snowflake disease because no two people are the same when it comes to their symptoms. So some people may experience all of the symptoms. Some people may experience no tremor, but maybe they have more issues with the non-motor, right? Some people may progress very quickly. Some people may progress very slowly. And so it just depends on that person. But as I was sharing about the physical symptoms and the rigidity and the struggles with movement, that's why exercise is medicine for people with Parkinson's. So people with Parkinson's need to be moving.
Well, exercise is medicine for everyone, really,
well, exactly.
Right? But specifically, yes.
For
I
you
can't
and
do
I,
without my yoga.
Yeah, no, it's a vital component for all of us in our healthy
Yeah.
lifestyles, right? For Parkinson's, it is a vital component to possibly slowing the progression of the disease.
Sure.
So if you have somebody that is living with Parkinson's and taking their medicine and going to exercise class 3 to 5 days a week, and is also plugging into the community through support and educating themselves, their trajectory with that disease is going to be much different than someone who goes home and takes their medicine and that's all they do. Because then that leads to a lot of isolation. They don't learn about the disease or how to manage it. They just let the disease, right? And so we encourage people to get plugged in with Parkinson's focused exercise, which We are in Indiana. There are so many great programs for Parkinson's here. We are not only the headquarters for IPF, but also Rocksteady. And so people have a choice how they want to exercise. They can go and do the climb. They can do Rocksteady. And there's just so many opportunities. There's also opportunities to get educated on the disease. So you can go into your doctor's office, and when they ask you how you're doing, you can say, this is what I'm struggling with, and these are the resources I learned about and what's appropriate for me, rather than just saying, I'm fine, I'll see you in 6 months, right? So it just changes that conversations with those medical professionals. And honestly, those doctors, they want questions. They want to know what's going on in your world 24/7, because I'm only seeing you once every 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's really a game changer when it comes to, you know, the whole journey, right? And that's true for anyone, whether they're diagnosed with Parkinson's, Huntington's, dementia, Alzheimer's. It's just important to plug into what is available to you, so you're not isolating and just letting the disease, right, take its
and so
course.
you can educate yourself.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, maybe you see this, we don't know what we don't know. So you get this diagnosis, and then you basically have to set out on a journey to find out a bunch of stuff about something that you just now maybe heard of for the first time, right? Like, I didn't know that about the dopamine. And so that was going to be my question. You addressed it already about depression. That was a side effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Because
Absolutely.
that's the happy hormone, right? Dopamine. That's what we're all seeking. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the time somebody is actually diagnosed, they're usually at about 50% of what you or I would have. Right. And so some of those symptoms, a lot of the symptoms, if you notice what I said, a lot of them can be very normal symptoms for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So for someone to have issues with sleep, issues with mood, issues with constipation, I mean, you're looking at that and I'm going,
that's like just
don't
a
we
middle-aged female.
don't we all struggle in those areas? So a lot of times people don't know, oh my gosh, these are possible symptoms of Parkinson's. I met with a lady yesterday who has Parkinson's, and she told me that she got a thing in the mail from the National Foundation, and it's the top 10 warning signs of Parkinson's, right? And she goes, I never even would have thought I had Parkinson's. And she goes, I went to throw that away, and I saw him, and I just ticked him off in my head. And next thing I know, I'm sitting in a neurology office. And so it's like,
so is there something, is that where you would go if you think that you have the symptoms of Parkinson's? You would go to a neurologist?
Yeah. So if you have, I would say if you have, one or two, it's not a huge worry, but, talking to your primary care doctor about anything you're experiencing is important, right? And usually if they find cause for, concern in that area, of course, they're going to send you to a neurologist or movement disorder specialist who would help you in navigating the diagnosis of the disease.
And so you make your way to the neurologist. Is there one specific thing that they're looking for that says that causes them to make the diagnosis? Like, is there something in the brain, or?
It is not the easiest diagnosis. And until just recently, we really haven't had a tool that has been, a successful tool to use for the diagnosis of Parkinson's. Most times a person would go into the neurologist, and the neurologist would have them do a series of physical tests so they can watch them do these tests. Knee tapping, finger tapping, walking up and down a hall, just a series of things like that. And that neurologist obviously is the expert in the field and knows what to look for when someone's doing those things. And so if they think that their movements and how they're doing these set of tasks warrants concern for Parkinson's, then they go the next step. But there is now a skin biopsy that can help diagnose the disease at like a 95% accuracy rate. And
Wow.
it's a 3-spot biopsy that they do. And that was just probably in the last 2 years that's come through the
Wow.
pipeline, which is amazing.
Do you know what it is that they're looking for on that biopsy? Like what
That's a good
shows
question.
up?
I do not know exactly what they're looking for, but I know it's definitely
That's
a great
interesting that
tool.
our skin, or can
Yeah.
tell you. Is there,
And what
I know you said every disease is different or, it looks different for every person. Is there a kind of like average age that people start experiencing this, or does that fluctuate? I mean, obviously Michael J. Fox is like one of the people know that. And I think that's why a lot of people feel like the trimmer thing is because he had that, but there's not, or has that, but that's not like you said, as not everyone has that. So is it a wide range? Is it just, is there anything that
It
certain age
is.
research start watching?
So I would say, predominantly, over 60 is kind of that demographic. And when I started with the organization, it was men over 60, right?
Yeah.
But what I see today is really a combination of men and women. I see women my age. I'm 51. I know people my age that have already been diagnosed. I spoke at a symposium in Evansville last year, and the gentleman that spoke after me was diagnosed 2 days before his 40th birthday. Right.
Wow.
So that is
Michael J. Fox was I just looked it up.
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox was diagnosed at age 29.
Yeah, I knew he was
that is
super
a
young.
young onset. That is young onset Parkinson's.
That's crazy.
And that is only about 4% of
Wow.
the diagnoses, but I just hear about it quite a bit more than I ever did. But again, I think it is more of that 60 and above demographic, but there are those that are much, much younger.
And are there any sort of like markers? Like it's not genetic, right?
So there can be
Do we know?
genetic factors, there can be
Okay.
environmental factors, there can be biological factors, there can be, issues with, things that activities that you've done in your life. So for instance, you look at the people that had high impact sports that have been diagnosed. Is it Brett Favre? I don't know if I'm saying his name.
Brett
He's
Favre.
a football player.
Yeah.
Muhammad Ali, who was a boxer.
Oh, yeah.
Think about these sports that involve head injuries, right? A lot of concussions can be attributed to the diagnosis, and then environmentally, there are people that were farmers exposed to a lot of different chemicals as farmers, pesticides, this, that, and the other. And you've got a lot of veterans who, they go and fight for our country, and they're exposed to more than they ever knew. And so those are some different, things that people do for their jobs, right? And they are exposed all the time. And then there are those people that have no family lineage, no history of it in their family. Their job does not fit any part of that, but they have Parkinson's. One gentleman that I've worked with for years, he's a pastor. He was a pastor and couldn't figure out why am I, what was the factor? And he thought, I was a runner. And when I would run, I would run out on the back farm roads.
Farm field.
So he thinks it's not defined by any means, but he's like, I think it's a possibility that I probably inhaled a lot of those, things that were going in those fields and things like that. So those are some of the contributing factors. Yeah.
I noticed that when I was working in home health care, a lot of our clients, would have Parkinson's or be newly diagnosed or progressing. And when I would sit down and talk with them, that was one of the main things I noticed, and why I think predominantly we thought in the beginning it was more men, because they were more predisposed to some of those jobs and
Yeah.
going, in the service and that sort of thing. But a lot of farmers, that was working with different chemicals, pesticides, things like that. And then most of the veterans that had been diagnosed, had been Vietnam, had where they were exposed to Agent Orange and those different things where it's like, yeah, there's definitely something there, I feels like. So, yeah.
That would be an interesting study if I'm sure somebody's already doing that. Wow. So when you were talking about the getting to a diagnosis and talking to your doctor and sort of advocating for yourself, talking about the symptoms, I was thinking about the families and caregivers, because this podcast is the Sandwich Generation. Our audience is mostly females from the ages of 35 to 65. They're adult children of, who are caring for aging parents or other loved ones. And sometimes they're across the country. Sometimes they're not here. They're not going to these doctor's appointments with their loved ones. And in some cases, maybe they're seeing their loved one the same amount of time as their doctor is, because they come in for the holidays, and then get back to their life. And so the daily nuances, how can somebody in that situation, living in wherever, Washington, and their parents in Indiana, how can they, or what can they be looking for? How can they sort of bridge that gap so that we get an earlier diagnosis so we can start treating quicker?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, speaking up, saying something, and even if there's pushback from the parent and they don't want to be, they don't want to disrupt their lives. They don't want to go to more appointments and find out this, that, and the other. Just speaking up, asking questions, contacting us directly, saying, okay, I was with mom and I noticed that things have changed a lot. Her home environment is not being kept up. It is not safe for her to navigate. I need someone to come in and help me get that fixed. I need someone to start going to her appointments with her, because she's either forgetting or not wanting to tell me what is happening in appointments, right? And, I also noticed that mom's not doing a whole lot with her friends anymore, because she feels like she's not eating the same anymore and people might be watching her, or, she's just not comfortable socially, right? So reaching out to us with those needs, we can connect them with resources locally that they could connect with through email, Zoom, or phone from across the country, right? And set things up right here, right? And then that can be, especially if you've got somebody like a case manager, they can be the eyes and ears medically and beyond for that child that's across the country, right? And they can be, keeping a journal. And then the kids, I highly recommend, especially if they're local and seeing them more, keeping a journal of things you're noticing and things like that, and making sure somebody is going to these doctor's appointments. Because so many times I have heard a caregiver say to me, I went in and the doctor said, "How are you?" And he said, "I'm fine." And I just went, "What?"
Yeah.
No, you're not fine. Tell him.
And so I think that's all too common. And I think it's out of fear, I'm sure, or just,
they don't want to inconvenience somebody,
they're just not thinking about, oh, well, I do need to talk to you about, hey, my medication is not taking effect for an hour and a half after I'm taking it. Or, hey, I think I see small children in the backyard. It's not really bothering me, but that is normal. Or, hey, I'm, struggling to take my medication on time. I mean, these things need to be brought up, right? These things need to be brought to the doctor's attention, because if not, the doctor doesn't know what to change or adjust.
I've been in front of the doctor before, and I've left and thought, shoot, I forgot to ask them about whatever. And so that makes perfect sense, whether you're, experiencing symptoms or not, like just keeping notes, maybe if a doctor's appointment's coming up, tracking things for the several weeks
Write
leading up to
down.
it. Yeah.
I tell people, take a list of questions that you want answered before you leave. Give it to the first nurse that walks in the door and just say, I need these questions answered before we leave today.
That's
right?
good. Yeah.
And it's just a good, I've covered my bases. Even if I forget, it's written down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would encourage, the families to make sure that their parents know how to use the portals. I know that technology cannot be an easy thing for seniors to navigate, but I know it's the best way to correspond with your doctor and usually the fastest response.
Sure.
And so if that is a struggle for mom or dad, figure out a way to help them, right?
Yeah.
I know a resource right here in town that helps seniors navigate tech. And I love that because I feel like that is such a barrier for seniors.
Yeah. I'm going to have to get your contact on that later. So the climb, let's get back to the climb in terms of it's available all over the country, right? And
no, we're just state. We're just
this is just state. Okay.
Yeah, we're just state. So throughout the country, like Rocksteady is international. There's other programs like PWR, which is I know it's national. I'm not sure about international, but there are other national. But ours is local. We do have it virtually too, but that's on our YouTube channel. So we have education and exercise on our YouTube channel, so people can access it that way. So if a child of someone with Parkinson's wanted to hop on and check out some of our shorter snippets of the climb, they can go and check that out, or they can go to our educational recordings, find out information on different resources locally. So we do have some virtual aspects too, but our climb program is just here in Indiana.
So what's the difference between, like the climb and Rocksteady? What are kind of the key focuses and differences between the two?
So Rocksteady is based on boxing. And so our program is based, it was created by a physical therapist and our board of directors and specific to Parkinson's, but really works on reducing rigidity, increasing range of motion, improving functional movement patterns through a series of exercises that can be ingrained into any practice. So we have trainers that are dance instructors, and they ingrain the climb program into their dance. We have yoga instructors. We have instructors that do strength and balance. It's just across the board, a great program to integrate into any type of fitness class, which is amazing because I feel like people love variety, which is amazing. So we focus on those larger, bigger movements and making things really exaggerated so that when you leave class, you're making bigger movements, right? Just because you've made them very exaggerated into class, but then they're better movements outside of class. So those smaller and slower movements become faster and bigger again, which is really helpful, especially when you're trying to, walk, do your activities of daily living, this, that, and the other. It also helps to mitigate that rigidity. So I talked about the rigidity in the face. Well, it happens all over the body, right? And so making sure that you're moving or exercising in some way is so helpful each day to reduce that rigidity and make sure that that's not allowed to take over, if you will.
Sure.
And then, practicing, things that are going to help you continue to be as independent as possible. Practicing getting up and down off the floor, making sure that you can do that and do it safely. Making sure that, hey, God forbid you fall. Do you know how to get up if you know you're not hurt, right?
Yeah.
And just things like that are really what we teach across the board. And of course, work with core to make sure your core is strong is huge for all of us, obviously. And again, just those larger, bigger movements, and also making sure that you're doing things in good form. So posture is huge with Parkinson's, because you probably notice they go into that kyphotic posture. Right?
Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
what happens so often is when you're in that kyphotic posture and your shoulders are forward and this, that, and the other, your movements are limited. So if you try to raise your arms and you're in this position, you can only go this high, right? But if you put your shoulders back and down, your range of motion changes completely, right? So we really work a lot on posture and making sure once we're in that upright posture, really engaging the backside of the body and waking up those muscles that have become stretched and weak. Because if you're kyphotic, this is all tight and taking over.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Muscles
Everything's stretched
are
out.
weak and stretched out, right? So if I come up and roll my shoulders back and down and just do some, squeezes between my shoulder blades, I'm waking up those muscles that are going to help me sit up and stand up taller, right? And that's also going to help my breathing, my swallowing, my voice, my speech. All of it is also being affected by
It's all
this
connected.
posture. Absolutely. So the posture
Are we
is.
sitting in our chairs right now?
I know.
doing
I
this?
just was like, oh
I know
gosh.
it makes you
Should
feel
we?
like, oh, okay, yeah, I got to do this, right?
Are we doing that? Yeah.
Yeah. So it is an amazing class, and so many people just love it. And people will always say to me, well, what, if they've just been diagnosed, well, which one should I do? Should I go to this class or this class? And I'm always like, go check them both out. Go check all of what's out there that's close to you out, and do what you love, because that's what you're going to stick with. Like, Lisa, you might like yoga. I might like weightlifting. Sara might like dancing, right? So we go out and we do what we love. It's not because somebody told me to go do this class or do this class. Now, I do recommend that people get involved with a class that is focused on Parkinson's, because I think that's where you find your people, right? You find your people that are also navigating the same disease, right? And so whether it's in our exercise program or in one of our support groups or at one of our educational events, people need people. And all of what we do between the education, the exercise, and the encouragement, all three of our pillars are not only doing those important things, but they're also connecting people in an otherwise isolating diagnosis.
Yeah.
So we really want to wrap around people and meet them where they're at. And I just love doing that, because so many times people will come to an event, whether it's an educational event or a race or whatnot, and they walk away and they have a better understanding of the disease and the journey that the disease can have, right? And how do we change that journey and make it better? How do we improve these lives? And it's through these programs, and bringing people together, because the last thing we want them to do is sit at home and just let the disease
Be
take
alone.
its
course. Yeah. That's great. I can tell that you're really passionate about it, which I already knew, but it's just it's good to know and let other people know there are resources out there. I was thinking about when you were talking about the online classes. This is a way that adult children can just take a peek at the classes online and then sort of speak the language of their parents. I liken it to like my kids. If I just mess around on Snapchat or TikTok, then I'm able to like speak their language, and that's how we connect. Sometimes, they probably think I'm ridiculous, but it's kind of the same concept. Adult children can take a peek into these classes that maybe their parents are getting involved in, and say like, well, how was class today? I saw that you were working on whatever. Did you like that? Or is there something else that you prefer? Just giving conversation and connection in that relationship, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And those online classes are shorter snippets, right? And so even being like, hey, I tried this class today, I think you'll like it, right? I think that sometimes, in the caregiver space or the son and daughter space, it can be frustrating, because if you tell mom or dad to do something or your loved one to do something, they'll get frustrated and they don't want to do it. They're just like, leave me alone. I don't feel good today. I'm having a rough day. Just don't.
Yeah.
So
But
I
if someone else completely unrelated says the same exact thing, it's like the greatest idea ever, right?
exactly.
Because,
Or just reframing it and saying, let's go for a walk, or let's do this task, and like doing it with them, right?
Yeah.
Or,
Mhm.
hey, let's go have coffee, or hey, let's go have lunch, or, hey, I heard about this great lady that can come in and, help you organize your house and make sure it's safer to get the bathroom, get you some night lights, get everything. Let's meet with her. Like, just making
Like
it
we're a team.
together, like,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. I think, just reframing those conversations. And I know you guys recently met with Jessie, and she's so good at that too. So
Yeah.
it's just like, I love, because we're speaking the same language. It's like,
Yeah.
changing the way we say things, changing the tone of our voice and things like that can really change how it's,
Yep.
heard.
Heard. Yep. Yeah, that's right. Tell us a little bit more about the support groups. Do you have support, obviously, for the person with Parkinson's, but are there other support groups for caretakers and that sort of thing?
Yep, we have a caregiver group that meets once a month here in Indianapolis. And we also have groups that are mixed. So they have people with Parkinson's as well as their caregivers, and we have those that are separate. And then we also have a women's group for women with Parkinson's, and that meets virtually once a month. So we have a lot of great groups. Many of them are in person, but we have the women's group that's virtually. And, they offer an opportunity for people to connect with one another. We also have speakers that come in and talk about different things that might help them on their journey. Again, just providing them resources that, hey, I might not need this right now, but in a year or two, if I do, I now know about it. Right. And so just giving those tidbits of information along the way to make sure that they know what's available to them, so they're not trying to navigate things alone that they shouldn't be. So these groups, we have educational speakers, but then we also have open discussions, because we know that time is really important.
Yeah.
And I always love the open discussions, because so much of the relationships build there, because somebody will have already dealt with someone else's issue now, right? And then they start just like sharing the resources that worked or didn't work for them, and sharing stories, and hey, let's go have coffee and talk more about this, right? And so they're really, they're connecting people to, we even have like a phone tree for one of our groups, so that everybody has each other's phone numbers, and hey, if they want to go meet for coffee or just get on the phone, they can. So it's a great way to, again, get out, be with others, share your story, and,
maintain a quality of life, right? Maintain the quality of life. So you mentioned stories, and we love stories. Can you share and maybe one of your favorite stories, inspiring stories that either an individual or a family that you worked with kind of experienced?
Yeah. And I have so many of them. Like, honestly, this morning I got an
Oh no,
email
it's hard to
from
pick one. Yeah.
a caregiver who shared with me. He was like, Kim, thank you so much for your thoughts on physical therapy for my wife. My doctor sent me one direction. They couldn't get us in, so I was able to go to your resource, and they were able to fit us in. Thank you so much. And just those little things. A story I always like to tell about our educational events is, this was, I think, pre-COVID. So this was a while back. And we had an educational program down in Greenwood. And we had a neurologist that came in from Florida and spoke on, a therapy for Parkinson's disease. And during his talk, he referenced hallucinations and delusions that can come about when you're living with Parkinson's disease. And there was a husband and wife in the audience, and the wife had Parkinson's, and the husband was her caregiver. And during that talk, she realized that her hallucinations and delusions were associated with her Parkinson's, and she wasn't losing her mind. Like, she had not told anybody about them because she thought she was losing her mind. And
wow.
there are things your doctor can do if you're having hallucinations and delusions, but if you don't say anything, they don't know it, right? And so we were able to connect them with someone to talk to about that, and so they could take that to their doctor. And it was very eye-opening to me, because I was, I knew the education was good, but it never, I don't know. I just never realized that, oh my God, somebody's living in fear every day and not telling anybody of anything that they're seeing or thinking, because they're scared to death of what that means, right? And they just realized that, hey, my doctor can help me with this if I just tell them about it. So that was one of my most memorable memories.
That's crazy. So they just were, well, I mean, if they didn't know that it could be connected or that there was help, again, it goes back to like, we don't know what we don't know. And just having trusted advocates around us to be able to say, this is what I'm experiencing, is so important.
Absolutely.
So basically, you guys you're doing a great thing.
Well, we appreciate you guys helping us get the word out, because it's amazing. I mean, even though we've been around since 2009, a lot of times people will be like, I didn't know you existed. I wish I knew about you 6 months ago. And I'm like, why didn't you? I don't understand. I don't know what, it's like you think that you're everywhere, and then you're like, okay.
You feel like you're doing a lot of work to get the word out. That's how we feel. And one of the reasons why we started this podcast, because we feel, or we hear a lot of times, gosh, I wish I would have known about you a year ago. And we're like, no, that means we're not getting out there enough. So that was,
and people just don't pay attention, like they may have seen it, but until it directly affects you, a lot of people just aren't paying attention. But, I think this is even good for people that have no symptoms or don't even have family members that have symptoms, but just to educate yourself on the things that can happen as we age, and being aware of things to watch for and be mindful of with your parents, I think is super important. So the more we know, the better we can do.
Yeah. Or just being in the community, and maybe you come across someone who has symptoms, just knowing about Parkinson's and maybe some of these symptoms. Like, I did not know until today about the hallucinations. So learn something new every day.
Yeah. And I always, I encourage people to, and this is for anyone, it's, have a plan in any situation, because you don't want to be in a situation where it's an emergency and you don't have that plan in place, right? So just knowing these different resources that are out there to help you, whether it be someone helping you navigate aging in place safely, or if you need to transition, what does that look like? You don't want to be in a situation where something occurs in the home and then you have to transition and you have no plan, because then you're forced into maybe someplace you don't necessarily think mom and dad would want to be, but it might be the only place with what's
available right now.
And so I think about so many times we wait for the emergency, and just not a good place to be. And so although you think, I don't want to think about that. Nobody wants to think about doing a will, doing estate planning, nobody wants to think about that. But it is something that is needed, because otherwise the gut-wrenching stories I've heard of what families navigate in that arena, if they don't have their ducks in a row, is much worse than it should have been.
Their options are limited. They're emotional. They're more susceptible to fraud. So many things. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and it's overwhelming.
If we had $1 for every time we said plan ahead. Yeah. So I want to give you an outlet to if somebody's listening to this and they want to support the Parkinson's Foundation, how do they get involved?
Yeah. So you can reach out to us. We have a phone number, 317-550-5648. And that number goes straight to a voicemail. And we try to get back to people in 24 hours. So if you are in need or you have questions, that's what we're here for. Please reach out to us. We also have an email you can reach out to, which is info@indianaparkinson.org. And that, again, we try to get back to in 24 hours. You can also check out our website, which is indianaparkinson.org. And that can show you information on events coming up, the programs and services that we offer. You can look at our educational events coming up to see where we're going to be. Tomorrow we'll be in Elkhart, Indiana. And then in July, we'll be in Carmel and Fort Wayne. And then August, back here in Indianapolis, and so on and so forth. So we're all over the state doing all these educational opportunities, and we would love to have you there. But whatever it looks like for you, if you want to get involved, please reach out. If you have questions, please reach out. If you have a need, definitely reach out, because we're here until there's a cure for this disease.
It's amazing. Yeah. Really good work.
Yep. We appreciate the information. Know it will be helpful. So,
and thank you for helping me shout it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some final thoughts? Some words of encouragement, just any message that you'd like to share with the audience before we hang it up here?
Yeah, absolutely. I just always encourage people, if you're newly diagnosed, or maybe you've been diagnosed for years, wherever you're at in your journey, we would love to be a resource for you. Please don't navigate this on your own. Please reach out. We will meet you where you're at, and just come alongside you. Let us do this journey with you, because nobody needs to do this alone. And again, we are here for you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we certainly appreciate having you on, Kim, and this has been very, very educational. So thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate the time.